It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time. Hello and welcome to another episode of Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil. On this Friday, the last Friday in September 27th, episode 232. Shelley, happy Friday. It's wine time.
Happy Friday.
And we have a guest. So rather than going through the pages and pages of accolades and awards, and we wouldn't have time to talk to our guests, but I'm just going to say this. That her career, Karen MacNeil, includes an Emmy for the PBS series Wine, Food, and Friends. I felt like I wanted to say the Emmy. And she's been called America's Missionary of the Vine, among other great things. That one stood out. We would like to welcome Karen MacNeil to Wine Time Fridays.
Thank you, Phil and Shelley. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, because we have trouble having a conversation without a glass of wine, I'm going to open our first wine. Shelley, you want to say what that is?
2023 Big Table Farm Laughing Pig.
That's right.
Rosé.
Ooh, just in time.
So cute.
This is a 2023. And this is a suggestion from Karen. Because, Karen, you visited this winery, yes?
I love Big Table Farm. They are, it's a wife and husband team, Claire and Brian. And Claire is an artist. Brian is a winemaker, so he's an artist as well in that sense.
That's right. Look at the artwork on that label.
I know, all hand-drawn by Claire. And they truly are a farm, not just a winery. They have all kinds of animals, and this is called the Laughing Pig because they have pigs as well as horses and chickens and just all kind of goats and sheep, and which they all care for themselves. So theirs is a real heartwarming story, and they make fantastic wine.
It's the best when they make fantastic wine, and then you have that other components. Really, every vintage is a different piece of artwork on the front, from what I understand, and of course we love from farm to table anything.
Yes.
It's the best of all worlds. We're going to do a quick Wine Time Fridays toast to health, wealth, and abundance, gratitude, romance,
and peace on earth. And cheers.
Woo, I love that. I'm toasting to all of those things as well. A great rosé should be super energetic. You should feel like it's kind of dancing on your palate. It should not be heavy. And so one of the things I like about this wine is that it is really alive and full of energy and kind of little sparks of minerals and crispness. It's a beautiful wine, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It's also unfiltered, and what else?
Unfined?
Unfined and unfiltered. Can you help us understand the difference between unfined and unfiltered? Unfiltered, we get that. But they have both descriptors.
Yes. Well, they're two very different things. Filtering is something that happens after the wine is completely made. And you might decide to filter because you want to be careful that there are no weird microbes in the wine, right? And nothing that would hurt you, but I don't know, there could be any number of little things in the wine that you want to filter out or not. By the way, filtering does not change the flavor of the wine. People think that it does, but a flavor molecule or an aroma molecule, to give you a good visual description, if a microbe is the size of a VW bug, like a Volkswagen car, a flavor or aroma molecule is the size of a speck of dust on the dashboard. So by filtering, you just remove any possibility that some microbe could spoil the wine, but you don't affect the flavor or the aroma. Fining is a different process. Fining is usually done with what is called a protein coagulant. This is a compound, the best one is egg yolks or milk, which dehydrated milk, casein. And those protein coagulants, like a little Velcro patch, attach themselves to primarily tannin in red wine. So if you had a really tannic wine, it could also be a rosé. If it was really tannic, you could add a protein coagulant, which would just kind of fall down out of the wine, attaching itself to any really aggressive tannin as it falls out. And the wine will taste a little softer and less tannic afterwards. So I'm sure the scientists at UC Davis are going crazy with my explanation. But, I'm giving the explanation for all of us real people.
That's right. They can get over themselves.
Who do not have PhDs in chemistry. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But I mean, wine is science, wine is farming, wine is all of the above. And so it all plays a part.
Also cuisine.
It's all cuisine. And I think that there might be a perception possibly for anyone that were to look at this. Because the first thing I did when I took this wine out of the box, and I'm like, oh, that's not filtered, without having read any of the notes. And there's, I think, a perception that means it's not going to be as good because they didn't take the time to filter, and it's all a look thing, right? But it's not the case at all. In fact, it's kind of fun to get those added elements, even if it doesn't change the taste. It does give it a different mouthfeel, does it not?
Yeah. I think, for some people, not filtering is good. For other people, not filtering is a sort of a bad sign. It might make the wine a teeny bit more hazy. But the truth is that neither of those things is the most important thing. The most important thing is what the wine tastes like.
Right.
So I think with this wine, you see, it's beauty, it's freshness. A lot of people feel that this wine has a kind of watermelon or strawberry flavor. That
very, is very Jolly Rancher watermelon.
Jolly Rancher watermelon.
But not sweet, unlike candy. I mean, this wine would be completely dry.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fantastic. What are the other things you liked when you visited the Big Table?
Well, they are their Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays, which are the two wines they are primarily known for, are so textural. Sometimes wine, we tend to talk about wine's flavors, right? But often what is most appealing about a wine first is how it feels. And so sometimes I say to my employees here, wine can be a textural wine with flavor versus a flavorful wine with texture. It's kind of a different idea. What does the wine lead with? And for the Big Table Farm Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs, they're just so sensually textural. They're like silk blended with velvet. I mean, they're real. It's really a hedonist delight.
Well, you're you're piquing my interest because we happen to have a Pinot and a Chardonnay in our cellar from Big Table.
Yay.
And we are working on getting them on as a featured winery in May of 2025, because May is Oregon Wine Month. And we are always trying to find these gems in all of the different wine regions. You know, I sent Karen some bullet points, some talking points, but I really want to get, if you wouldn't mind, Karen, we have just come out of 4 episodes featuring wines from 3 different wine regions that are kind of a little off the radar in terms of people knowing about them as a huge populace. Can you give me a couple 3 words when I mention wines from Finger Lakes region?
The Finger Lakes region of New York is a set of 7 extremely deep glacial lakes that the Iroquois Indian tribe described as the hand of God, because they look like long fingers.
Yeah.
And it's quite near the Canadian border, so it's a very cool region. And that makes it the premier region in the United States for Riesling in particular. And in my view, in the last 10 years, the Rieslings of the Finger Lakes have just gotten world class. I mean, there have always been a couple of wineries that have made world-class Riesling, but now a lot of Finger Lakes wineries they're just stellar. And they make dry Riesling as well as, I would say, off-dry Riesling.
Off-dry, yeah.
And ice wine.
Yeah, and ice wine, that's right.
That's what used to be known for their ice wine.
Well, you did mention Canada, which brings me to my number 2 new region, the Okanagan. At least when we were up in Penticton not too long ago, about a month and a half ago, we were blown away by wines out of that region from even, 6 years before we were there. And it seemed like it doubled or tripled in terms of winery that are actually
and much better quality now.
Producing outstanding wines. Have you had many wines from the Okanagan or in BC?
Yeah. Yes, I completely agree with you. They are, Canada in general, both British Columbia, BC, as well as Ontario, on the East Coast are, I think Canadian wine is probably one of the best kept secrets in the world. These are, for the most part, cool climate, high latitude, northern latitude regions that produce stunning wine. Yeah, I agree. The hard part is, for real complex political reasons, it's very hard, next to impossible, to get Canadian wine into the United States.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons why they're not better known here.
Yeah, it's the Canadian laws that make it tough, which is too bad. Just makes.
Is it the Canadian laws or the American laws?
I think it's the Canadian laws, and it just means you have to cross the border and go visit them.
Exactly.
And the last
car with a big trunk, over.
Well, we happened to bring back some Canadian wines with us, and didn't seem to have a whole lot of problem at the border, which was good. Because I thought they were going to ask, how many wines did you purchase up there? And I was going to say 0.
We just gifted.
we got them gifted. But it was no problem. The last region I wanted to ask you about is wines from Missouri.
Again, northern.
Yeah, Missouri. Well, Missouri was at one point in the U.S.'s history the most important state for wine growing in the United States. Yeah, we tend to forget about Missouri, but Missouri has a very long history of making wines. Like New York State, Missouri, to some extent, got off on the wrong foot by only planting hybrids in the early days. But now Missouri plants what are called vitis vinifera varieties, Chardonnay, Riesling, Pinot Noir, etc. Just like every other fine wine region in the world, they're capable of producing vitis vinifera varieties. And I agree that the quality of those wines is increasing year by year.
It's kind of fun.
We had some native grapes.
Yeah, we had some native
grapes. So like Stark Star,
Cloida, Albania was a grape.
Those are actual varieties.
Yeah, it was fascinating, and having them be the first AVA in the United States, and as you said, one of the, if not the most important state for producing wines in the U.S. until Prohibition knocked that out. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's thank you for spending some time with that.
And we didn't say this is a Pinot Noir, 100% Pinot Noir.
Thank you for that. 100% Pinot. Yeah. And by the way, those Okanagan wineries up there, Pinot Noir. Yes, they're doing Pinot Gris. Yes, they're doing Riesling, but they're doing Chardonnay and
Pinot Gris is nice and dry.
Yeah. I was amazed that they were doing Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon. And as was pointed out, these vines are within 100 to 150 yards from each other. No one would think that on a Chardonnay and a Cabernet. It's just, just when you think you might have a grasp on the wine industry, you get it all obliterated.
It's true. Yeah.
I want to say a quote from Tracy Sweeney. I know you know who Tracy Sweeney is.
I do know.
Wine is about inclusion and getting together. Now, Karen, why do you think I would bring up this beautiful quote?
You must have heard about Come Over October.
Yes. Please tell us about, well, before you do that, Shelley, are you going to go to practice tonight?
Maybe.
Okay. Shelley is a part of a parade group, and she's like, I don't want to go to practice after drinking a couple glasses of wine, but I want to pour myself a little bit of more of this rosé, and I don't want to.
You can.
There we go. Okay, Karen, why don't you explain about this unbelievable idea? It's fantastic about Come Over October.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate your kind words. Come Over October is coming up, of course, just in a couple of weeks here. And it is it was originally conceived by me as a nationwide campaign where every wine drinker in the country would invite a friend or a colleague or a neighbor or a family member to simply come over and share some wine in honor of wine's historic role as a communal beverage that brings people together. And that idea that wine brings people together has been true for the 9,000 years of wine's existence. And we know that I think every wine drinker in the world has had the experience of being with someone who they didn't know, and then having some wine together, and thereafter you are that person's friend, right? Wine has this almost magical ability to unite us, to foster friendships and deepen old ones, and that idea of wine as a vehicle that brings us together resonates whether you're 23 or 63.
Right.
So this was an idea that I created this past spring, and then asked two of my old friends, both of whom own their own communications firms, Kimberly Charles and Gino Colangelo. I said to them, it was early morning. I said, I've just had this brainstorm that this would be great. But I said, so it's either a really dumb idea or maybe it's a good idea. And they both said, oh, this is a really good idea. And so the three of us formed a small company And we have launched, come over October, two amazing now international renown, the Champagne Bureau, Wines of Chile, Wines of South Africa, Wines of Australia, Wines of New Zealand, the Chianti Classico Consortium, the Prosecco Consortium. I mean, it's just exploded internationally, the idea. And the three of us, Gino, Kimberly, and myself, are all donating our time to come over October. And this will be the first annual, because we are now making it an annual event in the United States.
That's
nice. So is there any rules on celebrating come over October besides having some wine and some friends?
There are no rules. And in fact, everything on our website, comeoveroctober.com, is available for free to use. So you'll see our logo there, and there are posters, table tents, all kinds of things that everybody can use for free. And what we have found is that wineries and retail stores and just regular old people are being very creative. So Total Wine and More, with its 274 stores in the US, will have big posters during October saying, come buy some wine and celebrate Come Over October. Regional associations, the winery, Washington State Wineries Association, the Oregon Wine Board, the Texas Wine Board are all hosting Come Over October events in their respective regions. In fact, Texas is doing Come Over October Y'all presentation.
COOY.
Yeah. So, whether you are just a regular person like us, or you are an association or a winery, Come Over October lends itself to any kind of an event you want to do, or even just having dinner with someone you love.
That's so cool. I have to say something. First of all, congratulations on moving so fast. We're basically talking 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
It is not easy to launch and to get legs on something like this. Speaking of legs, this one has really, really nice legs. Anyway, I digress. But your icon is very cool. It is a COO, but they're rings that a red wine would make on a countertop when Phil pours it, and it dribbles down the label. It's very cool. And I think, from what I understand, the wine industry has, for the last few years, the trend is to kind of pull the wine industry into alcohol consumption in general. And people are kind of poo-pooing alcohol. Yes, when you drink too much alcohol, it's unhealthy, okay? But alcohol in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but the wine industry is much more than just the alcohol. I had lunch with someone today, Kevin Olsenberg, shout out to you. He is sales for one of the distributors here in town. And I was explaining what Come Over October was. And he says, so people bring wine and then, have conversation. I'm like, I think it's relational first over a glass of wine. And really, leave the phones in your car when you go over, right? If you can. Shelley and I can't, because this is what we do. But most people can leave their phones at the door or whatever, and let's have a face-to-face conversation. And that's what really relational is so important.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And that's what Come Over October is all about. Wine, as I was saying earlier, has this magical ability to foster conversation and conviviality. It doesn't have to be a big party. It can just be, as I was saying, you and one other person. But in a world that is divisive in so many ways, and sort of fractured in so many ways. It's heartwarming. It's heartwarming to me that wine can be this kind of glue between us. And yes, you're right. Come Over October is not a medical campaign. I'm not a doctor. Gino and Kimberly aren't doctors, but I am a really good researcher. And I know that wine has played this positive role in society and culture for thousands of years. And as you point out, it is threaded into a rich tapestry of art and religion and history and culture. It's, if all you wanted was the alcohol, there are faster and cheaper ways to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't recommend that here at Wine Time Fridays by any stretch. No. But I mean, how many tasting rooms can say, come to our tasting room, meet as strangers, leave as friends, right? There's almost every tasting room could say that. It would get boring, but that's the gist of it, is over a glass of wine. We have had friends come over, we open a bottle, we'll sit on the deck, and then the bottle's gone. So we open another bottle, but the conversation is really what's driving it. And it's so much fun. Nobody wants to leave. And nobody wants to leave. And it's just a lot of fun. It's just so much fun.
Right.
And wine helps.
Of course. It's about the whole evening. And, when another really interesting fact to me is that when you ask people what was the most inspiring wine they ever had, right? Everybody's asked another wine lover that question. Absolutely everyone can tell you who they were with.
Yeah.
They don't even just say, okay, it was Gigal, Côte Rôtie, or whatever, right? Or Chateau Saint Michel, Chardonnay. They remember who they were with at that time. I mean, that's a really startling fact. It kind of underscores wine's philosophical place as a very different kind of beverage than almost anything else.
One of our sponsors today, Rocky Pond Winery, out of the Rocky Reach AVA, brand new in Washington. We had dinner with them, the owners and the winemakers, and the question was brought up at the table: what is your fondest wine experience? And to a person, everyone would say, which wine they had and that sort of thing. But one couple said, it's really the experience with the people. And first of all, I was really irritated I didn't come up with that. But second of all, it's so true. And to your point, you remember those that you sat and had a good bottle or a bad bottle. Doesn't really matter. But
some Annie Greenspring at a slumber party.
Oh my God. I learned
That's
something.
Going way back here, I bet.
Way back.
Shelley had last year a high school reunion.
50-year reunion.
Yeah. And so we did an episode trying to find some old school wines that may have been popular when she was in high school. And I can't even remember what we ended up with, but they're hard to find these days.
Choose rosé, something like that.
Yeah. So we're going to take one quick break. And when we come back, we're going to open a red. Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil and Karen MacNeil. And by the way, if you noticed just before the break, the way Karen speaks is very conducive to a very good writer. And she wrote the Wine Bible, 23 years ago. It just dropped the 3rd edition. Is that right, Karen?
That is right. And the first edition of the Wine Bible took 10 years to write, 10 unpaid years. But it has sold 1 million copies. It's now, if not the most successful wine book in America, certainly one of 2 or one of 3. So I'm deeply grateful. But yes, the 3rd edition came out last fall.
Well, congratulations on that. That's fantastic. Writing a book like that. By the way, we have a series called Women in Wine. And obviously Karen is one of, I think, the top 2 women in wine next to Jancis Robinson. And I'm not sure who's number 1, number 2. You guys have both made such an influence in the world of wine. And
well, Jancis is a friend, and Jancis is a friend, and she's fantastic. I mean, I have absolute, incredible regard and love and friendship for her. She's an amazing woman.
So does your wine Bible get bigger and bigger with each edition?
A little bit, Shelley, but it's already at about 700 pages. You actually can't go beyond that and not have to, or beyond that.
2 editions.
Yeah, you have to bind it into 2 books. And most people don't like buying 2 books, 2 volumes. So it's a real toss-up. You have to think about if you really want the book to be useful to people and you want them to buy it, then you really should just make 1 book. But I have shuffled the how many pages each section gets, and in order to accommodate now, there's whole chapters on China, for example. Right. When I did the first wine Bible, I could have never imagined that there would be a chapter on Chinese wine, but there is now.
Things evolve.
I just opened. So we talked about how wine brings people together. Wine has been drank and consumed and enjoyed for really centuries. We are opening
thousands of years.
Well, thousands. Okay, whatever. A long time.
About 9,000 years.
Thank you. That's a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah.
This is not a Barolo, but it is the Nebbiolo grape. And Barolo has often been described as the wine of the king of wines. I just wanted to bring that together when we talk about who drinks wines and through all these years. We just opened, Shelley, can you pronounce this? The 2019 Cantine Povero Batù Barbaresco.
I don't know how you say Povero.
And
Barbaresco is the place. There are 3 little villages that make up Barbaresco. It's it's in Piedmont. That's the area in northwestern Italy where it's from. And what I am drinking is a wine called Martinega, the 2019. This is a really well-known Barbaresco. But Barbaresco, it's only these 3 small villages. So it's the wines they're not exactly like Pinot Grigio, which you can find everywhere. Barbaresco is both more expensive, but also rarer to find. But as you point out, Phil, like Barolo, which is made there's a little bit more Barolo made. It's made from this really difficult grape called Nebbiolo. When we in the US, when you hear people say Pinot Noir is really ornery and difficult to grow and difficult to make, well, Nebbiolo is like 10 times more difficult even than Pinot Noir. So it's always really delicious to taste. And like all Italian wine, it tastes even better when you're in Italy.
I'll bet it does. I looked high and low for this and I found a half bottle. And I'm like, I'm not buying a half bottle. But we have the same vintage, same region, Nebbiolo, I'm not going to speak for Shelley, but I think we share the same opinion, has been a difficult grape for us to get to know. First of all, we don't have it that often, but it's a different grape. Why do you enjoy Nebbiolo from Barbaresco so much?
Well, one of the things, I mean, in Piedmont, in Italy, both Barbaresco and Barolo, both made from Nebbiolo, as we said, the wines are held in really high esteem, both because they're hard to make, but also because, a little bit like Pinot Noir, they're very ethereal. They are, they're light in color, usually a little light in body, but then really tannic in the case of Nebbiolo, which is not the case for Pinot Noir. So they're super structured because of that tannin, and they last for years and years and years and years, like 30, 40, 50 years. But they, they're not, what makes them hard to understand in America, I think, is we go looking for fruit, right? We're like, oh, is this cherries? Is this lemons? What is this? Peaches? Is this strawberries? And Nebbiolo doesn't taste like fruits. In fact, the classic descriptor in Italy is tar and roses. So if you just imagine the smell of tar and then the smell of roses, that's how you have to approach Nebbiolo. So it's a head trip, this wine.
Yeah, no fooling. We got this over a year ago from Terroir Fine Wine, owned by our friend Trevor Treller, who down at the Kermit Lynch event not too long ago, Trevor said he was able to pass by you and say hello, and then the flock of people around Karen MacNeil, he's like, no. But we did get this wine from his wine shop. This is about $40, and I don't know if this is going to be available right now there, but he has some great Barbarescos. Karen's is mid-60s, if you can find it. If you can find it, I want to know where, because I looked high and low nationwide, and I gave up, Karen. I said I gave up.
The producer here is Marchesi di Greci, and they are considered the sort of, I don't know, they would be in anybody's top 5 list of Barbarescos. And I'm just thinking to myself, how do we have this in our office? But, because of the Wine Bible, and because I do so much writing, and because of my newsletter, Wine Speed, where we talk about and recommend wines, we are in the enviable position of often being sent beautiful wines by thank you importers and distributors and retailers of the world. We appreciate that.
It doesn't suck, does it? You were just in South Africa too. Talk to us briefly about that trip, because we have found South African wines are fantastic, and price point is like, wait, what?
I know.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how many great wines I tasted that when I asked how much the cost of the wine is in the US, it would be like $18, $19. And you have to remember that an $18 wine is $3 a glass, right? Because every bottle has 5 glasses in it.
Yeah.
How can it took me, I live here in the Napa Valley. I'm coming to you from my office in the Napa Valley. It was 35 hours door to door to get to Cape Town. So how a wine gets that distance and still costs $3 a glass here in the States.
And this heavy bottle.
Well, that's a great segue, Shelley. Let's talk about those heavy bottles. Karen is a huge proponent. The heavier the bottle, the better. or not.
Phil, thank you for that tee up. Yes, I think I'm the first journalist in the U.S. to say that we will no longer write about any wine in one of those super heavy bottles. I call them Hummer bottles. They're like Hummer cars or Hummer trucks.
For the H2s, yep.
And that's because 40% of a winery's carbon footprint is shipping its bottles,
right?
In the shipping around of these bottles. So not only does it make the wine cost more to you, the consumers, but it's kind of a gross affront to anyone who cares about the earth, who cares about environmentalism. I mean, why would you just arbitrarily have these gargantuan heavy bottles? It used to be that people thought that was a sign of prestige.
Yeah.
But I think it's backfiring now. I think a lot of people just find these bottles a little, gross and inappropriate.
Yeah, and you got the big punts too.
And so many people are not recycling glass now.
Oh.
In our state, we have not a buyer for the glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. A very small percentage of any glass is recycled in the US. It turns out that recycling is a quite complicated issue. It's not as simple as all of us throwing our old wine bottles into the recycle bin. The percentage of that glass that gets recycled is very minuscule. But the wine industry is starting to take strong hold of this issue. And I do want to say, just because I came down hard on wine in heavy bottles, one of the things I know is that it takes a winery a while to turn that around, right? Because you might be buying right now 2021 or 2020 Napa Cabernet that was in a heavy bottle when it was bottled. That winery could be changing and going to lighter glass now, but we're still getting the heavy bottles. So it will take a couple of years for the situation to sort of correct itself.
There's a producer that is an Elemental. It's an everyday wine. Okay, they put it in aluminum bottles that's got a lining on the inside. Talk about less weight. I mean, that's taking it probably to the other extreme, but if it's an everyday wine, you're not storing these wines. So why not do what you can? These are all completely recyclable. It comes from a little puck, a little aluminum puck that they press into the bottle. There's creative people creating industries everywhere, such as Come Over October and things like this. We can figure this out, how to make a wine not such a big footprint on our ecosystem here in the world.
Yeah, and I think if, every winery, every fine wine winery will tell you that their wine is a reflection of their terroir. Okay, I am willing to accept that, but then damn it, protect the terroir, right? Okay, you can't have it both ways. You can't say my wine is reflective of the terroir and then do something like bottle in these giant heavy bottles that is so clearly against the preservation of the earth. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you are someone who believes that the ground, nature, has given you this beautiful wine, then protect nature, protect ground.
And you got a lot of pushback on this particular post on Instagram, which you held your ground, and I thought that was really good, because a lot of people are like, Karen, I love you. Do not agree with this at all. It's like, you know what? Sometimes people are just misled at this time of life, and it will correct itself. We only have Karen for a few more minutes.
And I just want to ask this one thing.
Yes.
It's a real quick question. So you used to have a tweet chat, Sip with Karen. When is the last time you did that chat? Because I used to participate in tweet chats a lot back then.
Gosh,
they're probably ex-chats now.
yeah, that was a while ago. Shelley, there are no ends of creative ideas, I think, in the wine business. So even though we're a small little company, we're pretty big in creative ideas, and we're often moving through those ideas very quickly. So I don't know the exact date, but I don't know. Check out WineSpeed, though, because WineSpeed we've been doing for now a couple of years, and we have a 80% open rate, which is quite.
Those numbers are 1998 numbers. 80% open rate.
1998.
Well, I'm serious. I do want to.
I did look at that website.
Yeah, and all, by the way, all of you'll see all of the links in the show notes below for all of this stuff, and we strongly suggest you visit winespeed.com. And she's got her own line of glasses. We're drinking out on Andrea Robinson's The One Wine Glass, which is our wine glass of choice here in the house, but we might have to look into Karen's too. Yeah. Just saying. I wanted, before Karen leaves, I want to talk about our the social web wine word of the week, which is sulfur.
You chose an easy word there, Phil.
Well, I went through Karen's Instagram, almost changed it to find or unfind. But
maybe you should have done that and said, "Oh, we already talked about that."
That's right. Sulfur. She brought up this word in mid-July, and I'm like, you know what? We need to do this as the wine word of the week. Do you have it in you, Karen, or should I read? Should I read what I wrote down?
Yeah. No. I will quickly say that sulfur is probably the most misunderstood concept in the whole world of wine. Sulfur, hello, universe. Sulfur is an organic chemical. It is part of the Earth's crust. Sulfur is a naturally occurring antimicrobial agent. It is therefore really good to be used in small doses in wine. If you didn't use sulfur, your wines would very quickly be a little microbial stew, because microbes do love to grow even in wine, even though there's acidity and alcohol in wine. So sulfur, by the way, not only is it part of the Earth's crust, but it's a naturally occurring byproduct of fermentation. So there are no wines in the world that have zero sulfur. No wines. You may not add sulfur as a winemaker, but there's still going to be a little sulfur in there because you had to ferment the grapes to get the wine in the first place. Also, if you are one of the 1% of people in the world who are allergic to sulfur, you know it. Not only will you not drink wine, you won't drink fruit juice, you won't have dried fruit, you won't have tortillas, you won't have lettuce in a bag. In fact, the number of fruits and vegetables you won't be able to eat is very high, because they all have little bits of sulfur, because sulfur it's a little bit like refrigeration. It keeps microbes in check. In fact, it doesn't allow microbial growth in wine. Lastly, dry areas like California, Australia, Argentina, dry areas they add very little sulfur, because in a dry area, unlike a moist area, it's harder for microbes to grow. So in a place like California, Australia, or Argentina, you barely need to use any additional sulfur because it is so dry. So I was reading something the other day about this winery that said, they feel that their wine is low in sulfur. This was a winery in France. They were adding 100 parts per million ppm of sulfur. In California, the the most sulfur you even ever see is about 30 parts per million.
Right.
So I have to say, I love it when people say, oh, I can't drink California wine. It gives me a headache. There's so much sulfur. No, no, no. Wrong, wrong, wrong. It just doesn't, it isn't.
Yeah, it doesn't add up, does it?
Doesn't add up. But, it is true that something gives people headaches with wine. I know that is true. I'm not questioning the truthfulness of that. But we don't know exactly what it is, and it may be individual. There is one leading culprit, though, which is being dehydrated. Every professional knows to drink a lot of water when they're tasting wine, because if you get dehydrated, that's like a straight shot at getting a headache.
Right.
Exactly.
There are, and we know you have to go. There are wines will have that first sip or two, and Shelley will turn to me and say, this is a headache wine. There's just something about it. I don't know, to your point, don't know. Karen, we're going to honor your time. Thank you so very much for joining us. We're going to say goodbye to her, then take a break. And when we come back, we're going to do a couple of business items and we'll go from there. But Karen, thank you so much.
Yes,
My pleasure.
And
I learned a lot.
we will be participating in Come Over October.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Phil and Shelley. Really appreciate this talk. It has been great to talk with you today. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Okay.
Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays, episode 232 on this Friday, September 27th. It's my nephew's birthday. Happy birthday, Tay.
Happy birthday, Taylor. We never did bring up the fact that not only is October, Come Over October, it's also Shelley's birthday month.
Yeah, and I haven't made my list of what I'm going to do every day.
Oh, that needs to happen.
I know.
That needs to happen. That was fun.
That was very fun.
And this is not often where we get to do a wrap up on the episode after our guest has left. And I prefer not having it this way, but this is kind of nice for a change to be able to heap praise and gratitude and thanks onto Karen for spending some time with us. We had her for nearly an hour, so that's really cool. We have some things coming up. Well, we should talk about some of the wines we enjoyed this week, like
Kay Vintners, the Deal Syrah, Jay Bookwalter, the Protagonist. We had some good wines.
We did have some good wines.
Cabernet, Gilbert Cellars Left Bank, Maestro Brunello di Montalcino, and Manolo Merlot
from Napa,
Nicholas Potel Chablis, and Mary Taylor Coutu de Genoa Rouge.
One of our sponsors today is the Cuvée app. You will have to reach out to us, but we have a specific link we can give you. Either Shelley will do it or myself, to their Sip, Track, and Earn program, which has been a lot of fun. When you have a glass of wine, really even, or a bottle of wine.
You have to have the bottle.
You have to have the bottle, and you take a picture, and
you have to upload it. You can't take a picture and then upload it. So you have to upload it directly from
the app. Yeah, you take the picture in the app.
No cheating with all those wine photos you have on your phone.
That's good. Good job, Andrew. And by the way, we've had Andrew and Cameron on as guests, and this is a lot of fun. And they're testing the market down in Napa to see if this is going to work. And it sure seems so.
Beers now, so
beers. They had a flash event for beers. I had to pull out a beer and have a beer.
Yeah, they got all those quadruple points.
It was great. Some things coming up. We have the 5th International Vranic Day, 6th National Orange Wine Day. Excuse me. On the 5th is International Vranic Day. On the 6th, which is next Friday, I can't remember what the date is. Anyway, the 6th, we're going to have an orange wine next week.
Huh.
Yeah, which will be kind of fun because we like orange wine and the story behind it.
It's not made from oranges.
No,
What kind is this one? Do you remember?
I don't because I haven't picked it out yet.
Oh, okay.
We
had one made from Gewürztraminer from Liberty Lake Cellars.
I think we still have it.
And we have another
An Eternal.
I can't remember what Eternals was.
Yeah, I don't remember either. But next week we'll go all into orange wine. And it's a lot of fun. On the 12th, we have International Pinotage Day. The 14th is International Prokopak Day.
Sounds Greek.
22nd is Austrian, I didn't spell it right, but Austrian Sekt, which is the sparkler. 25th is International Champagne Day. The 26th, International Mavro Day. And the 31st is Carignan. Through on November 7th as International Merlot Day, because I can't believe we're talking about November here in September. No. Huge thanks. Do you have any overview about what Karen talked about today?
Any overview? She's just very brilliant.
Yes, it's so much fun.
And she obviously, well, I don't know if she has like a major in chemistry, but she must have scientific background, although maybe she just has been studying wine for a very long time.
For a very long time. We did not get to ask her what her gateway wine was, and that's okay. We got some good organic
and Big Table Farm's Laughing Pig is so cute. So if you're ever in Oregon, try to get here.
We're actually going to...
They gave us a little...
a tea
towel, which you didn't put out. But
I didn't put it out. Darn it.
That was so very nice.
But we'll have them on, and we'll have it on then. It was a great little note, little card, some tasty notes. It was fantastic. We're going to try to have them on in May, and we're going to try to get this wine here in North Idaho. One of the great things about having a wine podcast is we can actually help connect some distributors to some wineries, which we love. A huge thanks.
I want to go there. I want to see the pigs.
I bet you do.
And sheep and everything.
It's great. Farm, all of that is fantastic. There was a winery did out of Napa that, and I can't remember the name, had the same.
By two women, I believe.
Yep. So
was it NFT?
Yep. We love that. Huge thanks to today's sponsors, which is Rocky Pond, Seasons of Coeur d'Alene, and the Cuvée app. And I think that's about it. I do have one more quote that I didn't get to sneak in with Karen. I feel that wine is the most intimate and profound thing. You can share it with friends or sit alone and contemplate it. It represents a sustainable cycle, and it can be kind of fun too. That is Tim Carl from Huge Bear Winery in Sonoma. Shelley, with a little bit of knowledge, wine becomes a lot less overwhelming. Thank you for listening. Thank you again to Karen MacNeil for being our guest today. And we'll see you next week with some orange wine. Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets, for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you. To health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.